Remarkable people overcoming remarkable challenges with resilience, dedication, community, and grit. Listen as they share their stories of overcoming adversity. Open your eyes to what is genuinely possible for all of us. Authentic Adversity with host Chris Howe.
Welcome back to another episode of the Authentic Adversity podcast. Today I sit down with a good friend of mine via Instagram. He's a life coach. I've been watching his journey for, 5 or 6 years now, I would say. And, he inspires me daily with his posts. He's quite inspirational. He's got quite a story. I've seen where he was and where he is today. And I mean, my mind is blown every time you post a before and after photo. And, so I just want to welcome Tim Arrigo.
Yeah, thanks so much. I really appreciate you having me on here, Chris. Really.
Yeah, man. As we said before, before we started rolling here, we've been following each other for a long time. And I love these, this podcast has given me a nice chance to actually connect face to face. I mean, obviously through a screen, but to actually have a real conversation with people that, I feel social media can be used for such good things, and channels like yours, where you're inspiring people daily and letting people in on like snippets of your life and, giving back in such a profound way. I mean, to be able to sit down and actually have a face-to-face conversation like this is quite humbling, and it's really my honor to sit down and chat with you. It's been really, really nice to follow along your journey, and there's not too many people that I follow that I actually feel like, I know this guy. Like in a way, you get to know somebody on accounts like yours are very personal, and you let your followers in on very personal parts of your life. And I really appreciate that about you. You're very transparent and, inspiring. And I always gather a piece of hope to carry through my day when I watch one of your posts. So I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, man. Likewise. Feelings mutual, man. Totally.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate it. So generally I like to kind of do a bit of a chronological walkthrough of your life. So, I guess we can kick it off by talking about, what it was like, where you're from, what it was like growing up, what kind of kid you were, what the environment was around you, and take us through your journey.
Yeah. So I was raised in Orange County, California. So like music, surfing, skateboarding. Started skateboarding at a really early age, and it was just like my first love affair. It was my first addiction was skating.
Yeah.
And it was during the early 90s, so skating, the scene back then was a little different, small wheels, baggy clothes. Drugs were a part of that scene, and I grew up, I played music. I have an older brother. And, I just was always, I was always the creative guy. I was always the guy that wanted to push the limits, man. I was always a risk taker. I was always the guy who wanted to go bigger than everybody. I wanted to, I just always had that need in me to I felt like kind of prove myself. And it wasn't until later in my life that I realized just a lot of that was connected to, I think, what a lot of what I felt like was missing in my life.
Okay.
Which was true connection with people. And my parents got a divorce when I was like about 13, and my dad, he left. And right around that time, I had already started experimenting. I was already smoking weed from like 12 years old. I had already started experimenting with like, LSD and ecstasy and mushrooms. And so as soon as that divorce happened, I never, at the time, I really didn't have a really good relationship with my older brother. Him and I we're like polar opposites. So that relationship with my brother was kind of already fractured. My mom was kind of going through her thing, and she was dealing with like a midlife crisis. And my dad was, he was kind of just, heartbroken from the divorce and going through his own stuff. And So I kind of it opened up a door for me to kind of go like, dude, no authority. Like, I don't have any more rules anymore. Like, now I really can do whatever I want.
Right.
And, man, that just kind of sent me on a downward spiral from there. I went to Catholic school my freshman year. And from that Catholic school, I went to public school. But when I went to public school, I thought it was going to be like a reunion with all my friends from middle school. But it turned out like everybody had like new friend groups and stuff. So I was kind of like just left out again, man. And I kind of just felt like, man, like here I am again. Like I can't connect to anybody. And, you know, when you feel that way, you end up kind of hanging with lower companions. You find the people that you can connect with. And especially if drugs are involved, like you're just, usually it's guys that come from the same dynamic that you do, you know? And so I went to that public school and got kicked out in like 2 months. And then went to a continuation school. And at the continuation school is when, I was a graffiti writer when I was really young. So I used to like run around on the freeway and climb freeway signs and like, yeah, I was just like, that was my personality, bro. I wasn't like, you know, if I got to be doing something extreme. So when drugs came into the play, it was like, I'm an extreme dude. Like, how far are we going to take this? And I started doing speed when I was like 17, and I got addicted to it like immediately. And because speed is a psychostimulant and stimulates a lot of dopamine. So I got addicted to it really fast, and I went into a psychosis, and I was in that psychosis for like a week. And I barely came out of the psychosis. And when I came out of the hospital, I went into my first rehab, and it was pretty much 17.
Yeah.
So counting the days, dude. Like in that first rehab, just like I remember Bum Fights just came out, and so I just like watched Bum Fights on rerun. And, like, I just was like, you know, I was in this house like with a bunch of old dudes, and I was like, man, I can't relate to any of this. And the counselor was taking kind of like a tough love approach with me, which really didn't work because I was really anti-authority already.
Right.
So, and you know, music, punk rock, kind of everything went hand in hand with that. So yeah, I came out of that rehab and then decided I wasn't going to touch speed anymore. So I started doing pills, and some guys that I grew up with in my neighborhood, had some connections and started moving like some really like big amounts of pills and other drugs. And I got sucked in, man. And I was really my need for validation, bro. Like,
you know,
I
can relate to that 100%.
You know, I just felt like it was always like, I'm trying to fit in. I'm trying to get these guys to like me. And like, I was really blown away that like people would want to connect with me and want to spend time with me. And like, I felt like I lacked that from, you know, the men in my life so much that I felt like when I finally got that, I was like, I don't want to lose it. And what do I got to do to keep it? So got addicted to the pills, and, you know, in and out of, you know, trying to get my life together and never really having a sense of purpose, you know, dead end jobs, and just, I don't want to work at Ralph's, you know, for the rest of my life as a bag boy. And like, what am I going to do? And so just kind of like floating through life, man, as a young kid. And that was when I had a knee surgery. I blew my knee out skateboarding, and I got a knee surgery on my ACL, and I got prescribed some Oxycontin. And this was at like the height of the Oxycontin epidemic. And dude, I started doctor shopping, and I started going nuts with the oxys. And one day somebody told me, hey man, like, you could sell one of those pills for $40 and you could just use heroin.
Right.
And then first time I did heroin, I shot it. I shot dope, and it was over, bro. Like I was started shooting dope, and then within a year I had a needle in my neck in a Starbucks bathroom. And that was my life. And that was my life for the next 7 years, was IV drug use, hepatitis C, psychiatric stays, indigent facilities, completely disconnected from my family, totally emaciated, and a broken human being, man. And just, and you know, the worst part is like, you know, when you have greatness in you, you know, when you have gifts but you don't know how to access them.
Yeah.
you know?
It seems impossible at that time, especially with the dope and, you know, everything else going around us. When you're so entrenched in that lifestyle, you don't know anything else. And it's like, you know that there's something else out there, but there's no way to access it. There's no way to kind of claw your way out of the hole that you've dug for yourself, right? I've been exactly in that same place. And
Yeah.
geez, I know exactly how that feels. And it's quite hopeless.
Yeah, it was. It was
Yeah.
a really desperate place, man. And
Mm-hmm.
I went to some really dark places, you know, like in just people I was with and things that I saw and just things that I went through and experienced. Like it was just, you know, that life, when you're out of that life, it's like people would never even know that that stuff goes on. But like, you know, when you're in that life, it's amazing what, like, there's this whole underworld of people who are involved in just dark stuff, man. And you get caught in that. And there's a spiritual element to that. The spiritual element is just darkness, man, all around you. And you're in spiritual darkness, you're in bondage. So yeah, that was pretty much my life. I got diagnosed with hepatitis C, and I was on methadone at the time, and I was on Xanax. And I went to I basically was trying to get methadone, and there was something wrong with the factory. So they had like some type of issue at the factory where they weren't pressing the pills.
Okay.
So there was like a recall of the pills. So I couldn't get them anywhere. And I came home and I was just laying on my bed, and I was kind of staring through the crack in the door, like between the door frame. And I just kind of had an out of body experience for like 3 seconds.
Right.
And I kind of just felt this crazy peace come over me.
Hmm.
And I kind of came back into my body, and I was like, whoa, what was that? Was that my life? And then I heard a voice in my head, and it was my voice. You know, as people say, you hear the voice of God, but it was like my voice. And it said,
Right.
this whole time you thought you were in control, but really you're just a slave.
Yeah. Wow.
And I sat up in my bed, and I like almost had a panic attack. Cause like my whole life, I did think that I was in control. Like I never really believed that like I wasn't in control. I was like, oh, I take these drugs when I want. Like I can stop when I want. Like, and it sounds so cliche, but for me at the time, it was a really big realization. And I'm like, dude, how much cognitive dissonance do you have? You have hepatitis C, but you're still doing the stuff that gave you the hepatitis C, and you're trying to treat your hepatitis C, but you're still doing the stuff that gave you the hepatitis C.
Yeah.
That was the insanity of my life, was like, how insane are you? And so I had that moment of clarity, and I decided I want to get off everything. So I went to the hospital, and I told them, hey, you know, I need to detox. And they said, sure, no problem. And what are you on? I said, I'm on interferon. I'm on pegylated interferon, and I'm on methadone, and I'm on Xanax. And they're like, oh. They took back the clipboard. They're like, sorry.
Really?
Yeah, we're not detoxing anybody off of methadone, number one. And number two, you're on interferon. Like the risk of you dying while detoxing is extremely high, because interferon's like chemotherapy.
Yes. Yeah.
It'll break you off. Like they don't even use that therapy anymore because it's so, a lot of people get suicidal. Barely half the people don't even finish it. So half the time it doesn't even work.
Yeah.
On your genotype. So I went back to I was walking out of the parking lot really defeated, and this guy followed me outside. And God bless this guy. He followed me outside, and he goes, hey man, we can't help you, but this guy can. And he gave me the number to a doctor, and I called the doctor. I got some medications, and I ended up just doing a grassroots detox at my house, which was the by far most brutal, arduous, painful experience of my life. And 3 days into it, in my boxers, sleepless, disoriented, just totally out of my mind, I just hit my knees and I threw up my hands. And I just said, God, if you're real, kill me. I said, you can take my life. You can do whatever you want with me. I said, I'll serve you for the rest of my life. I said, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. But if you're really real, take it. It's yours. I'm done. I throw in the towel on me. Tim Arrigo is dead. You can have me. And boom, dude, instantly my life was changed, bro. Like instantly.
So the Tim Arrigo that was no longer.
He died.
Yeah. Wow.
He died. Yeah. I came out of that detox, and I really just realized, like, I just did something that I didn't even think was possible.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind. And that was really the first step for me.
That is quite a spiritual experience. And like, I mean, people talk about that moment. I mean, some of us have that moment of realization and it's so profound. Some of us have it, you know, over time and you look back and you realize, but that is quite profound.
And it was one of those experiences of like every day I felt like there was a Doc Martin just like crushing my ribs and my heart. And I just crippled by anxiety. And I'm like, I think I'm going to die doing this detox. And like, I just kept pushing through and pushing through and pushing through and pushing through. And like, I just was like, I got to do this. I have to do this. I have to do this. You know, I think that's why a lot of times like rehab doesn't work for people is because it's not painful enough. You know, like, you really got to
too comfortable.
Yeah, it's too comfortable.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm going to kick. I got to have my Suboxone, my comfort meds. It's like, dude, try to make it really bad. Like, I'm not saying, you know, like push the limit of what you can take. Like, I'm talking make it really painful because that in and of itself is adversity. That detox is a form of adversity. If you can make it difficult and overcome it, that's like your first victory. You know?
Absolutely. Yes.
Like this comfortable just detox where I'm kicking back, getting a massage at some bougie rehab, and I'm getting all my comfort meds, and I'm complaining because my feet hurt. It's like, well, are you really going to appreciate it?
Right. It's not hard enough, and you'll if you make it as hard as humanly possible, you're never going to want to do that again.
Yeah.
That makes relapse very scary because you think there's no way I can live through that detox again. And that's the way it was for me too.
Yeah.
I didn't go to an inpatient facility. Same as you, I kicked at home in my boxers the same. And so I can totally relate to those feelings. And I mean, that's exactly how it feels. Like you're somebody standing on your throat, crushing it for 2 weeks. And, you know, and there's not one fiber of my being that wants to experience that even for a second again in my life. And, you know, that experience alone is something that I know that I can always come back to. And, you know, if the thought of using or, you know, going back and relapsing in some form ever crosses my mind, I can remember those days, and there is no way I have another detox in me. So that means I don't have another drink or drug in me.
And there were so many times where I had kicked and gone through but nothing was like that detox. You know, it's like you have one, and that one was really the interferon, which was bad enough. Like there was times where I'd go to band practice and just like lay on the ground because I was so fatigued. And, you know, I would just sit on my bed and just stare at the wall, open the fridge, didn't even have the energy to make a sandwich. Like I would just stare into the fridge, and like that on top of a methadone and Xanax detox, you know, which Xanax is like only, you know, one of the two drugs that you can die on. Alcohol and Xanax are like really, if you're off either of those, you could have a seizure and die. So that experience it literally turned me inside out, man. And then it was almost like a light went off in me where I immediately was like, man, I gotta like help people.
Okay.
Like, I gotta help people. And instantly in the first 30 days, I started looking for a job in treatment.
Oh, is that right? Wow.
I got a job on the night shift. Okay. And it was my first job in treatment. And they put me at a house, and so it was about my second week on the job. And, you know, I was new. I kind of felt like, man, you know, like I'm new. I'm trying to learn the ropes. And I showed up to work one night about 11:50, right before my graveyard shift. And there was a guy that was outside on the curb, and he had his bags, like a trash bag with him. And I walked in the office. I said, hey, what's up with that guy out front? And they're like, oh, that guy? F that dude. And I'm like, okay. Wait, what? I'm like, I thought we were helping people. Like, we talking about F that guy. And they're like, dude, we've tried to talk to that guy for the last 24 hours. He's not going anywhere. He wants to leave. He's not hearing it, dude. The owner's been over here. Everyone's talked to him. He's leaving. So I said, well, can I talk to him? And they said, bro, you're wasting your air. Go ahead. Go talk to him. Mm-hmm. I just went outside, and at the time I still smoked. So I got out a cigarette and, you know, gave him one. We had a cigarette together. I just talked to him. I didn't even say anything profound, man. And I just related to him, and I empathized with him. And an hour later, he was walking with his bags past the window, and they're like, what'd you say to him? They're like, jaws dropped. They're like, what'd you say to him? I didn't really say much. I go, I don't know what I said. And
well, you treated him like a human being, and you talked to him just like one addict talking to another, right? I
That was
mean,
it. And
yeah.
the next day I came back to work and he was waiting for me outside, and he had tears in his eyes, and he was like, "Hey man, like, thank you for what you did last night."
Wow.
And yeah, I'm getting choked up just thinking about it. He said, "Thanks, man. Thanks for what you did last night." And I walked inside and I kind of stared at the wall when I got inside the office, and I was on the graveyard shift by myself.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I'm staring at the wall, and I'm like, and I felt high.
Okay.
And I was like, this feels really good. I'm like, I can't remember the last time that like I've made a difference in someone's life in a positive way.
Sure.
And I immediately just said to myself, like, I want to do that again. And then
Yep.
the thought that followed that thought was, well, if you want to give more, you need to be more.
Okay. Yeah.
So then I was like, it just inspired me to like, okay, I got to be better. Like, I got to be smarter. I got to be a better communicator. I got to be in better shape. Like, I want to improve who I am so I can give more to people, because if I have more answers and more solutions, then like
Yes,
I could really help more people.
for sure.
And so that my whole personal development journey was really based on like providing value to people, because that's really where I found my purpose, was like
Yeah.
helping somebody did so much for me that it was like I couldn't believe the power of that reciprocity. That experience was just so powerful. So I was just like, man, I want to just do this for a living. I want to make my whole life around this. And
Right.
yeah, so that experience was really what set me on course for like, how can I help more people? You know, like
Yeah.
I want to do more for people. I just want to, I want to be a better version of me for people in my life that are going to be put in my path to help, you know?
For sure. Isn't it funny that how that happens to us in recovery, right? Like we start to realize that giving back and helping another person, I mean, it adds value to our lives, sometimes more than it might to theirs, right? And and we come from a place where we think we have zero value. We feel worthless in active addiction, right? And when we're able to make a tangible change in somebody else's life, it's like, oh my goodness, I had a part in that. How good does that feel? This makes my life feel worthwhile all of a sudden. And I mean, like, we're addicts. It feels good. We want more of that, right? We want to help more people. We want to, yeah.
Yeah.
I know for myself, when I came into the rooms of recovery and people started talking about, helping others, and they tried to explain what that would give back. I was in a place where I couldn't understand that. I was so selfish and self-centered. There was no way that I could fathom either having enough in me that I could give worthwhile attention to somebody or give back in any way. And also, I couldn't fathom that would give me back anything, that would make me feel so good. And I mean, and then when I started to do it, it was like, oh my God, I pushed back on it for so long. And all these old guys in the rooms were always telling me, no, you got to help somebody else. That's when the change happens. You're not fully in this program until you start giving back. And I mean, at the time I was in the 12-step rooms, right? So, I'd go through my steps and then I'd get stuck. A lot of people get stuck in the early steps, but I would get stuck in the giving back piece. And I was reluctant for so long because I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe that I could and that I had anything worthwhile to give. And when I started just doing what you just explained, like speaking one addict to another, and treating somebody else the way I would like to be treated, and looking for pieces of relatability in some of the newcomers and that sort of thing, it was like, oh my God, the light bulb went off for me. That's what they're talking about. That's the feeling that they're always chasing now. And yeah, that was the same thing for me. I wanted more of it, and it's hard to understand for somebody who hasn't been through that process, or who hasn't, isn't maybe in the recovery realm, kind of how the addict in recovery goes through that process and sort of regenerates from nothing, right? It's something that drives me every day, and it sounds like it's the same for you.
Yeah, I think that for people who have been through the bottom of the bottom, rock bottom,
Mm-hmm.
I think that the experience of like watching somebody else go through that and someone like living vicariously through that is like very powerful. You know, I tell guys all
Yeah.
the time, like, you know, they're like, oh, I still want to get high or I still want to get drunk. And I'm like, dude, you want to get high? Like, try going to your mom's house 30 days sober. And when she asks you, you know, hey, son, do you have everything you need? You say, Mom, I got everything I need right here.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you know, son, can I do anything for you? And you're like, no, can I do something for you?
Right.
And you drive away and you're high. You're high on pride and self-respect.
Absolutely.
You see that guy he got a year, his family comes to you and they say, you know, thank you so much for what you've done and it's like, and you're high, you know,
Yeah.
you're at the podium, you get your first year, you're at the podium. And, you know, I'd like to thank everybody. Most importantly, I'd like to thank God. And, you know, you go up to somebody else who's new and you share your experience with them. And then inevitably, like you drive away and you're high. You're at the park and your kids are crawling all over you, calling you dad and telling you that they love you. And you got tears of gratitude coming underneath your sunglasses. And it's like, you're high.
Yeah.
You're higher than you've ever been. And it's not cut with anything. It's completely pure. It's free.
Yeah.
There's no come down. And it's like,
Yeah.
and you don't even have to take anything. You just give it away, you know, and
That's it. Yeah.
it's just amazing to me that, you know, that would have been, you know, that would have been the solution for me. I always thought the solution was on the outside, you know, it was always in the material, you know, and it's really not. And that's why, so my career kind of evolved over the years from, you know, I had run outdoor programs with men where I used to take men out into, we used to go camping and I used to do like some really deep, you know, like just introspective work out, you know, with no cell phones, no nothing, just men getting real with each other and
Right.
getting vulnerable. Because vulnerability for us as men is so important, man. Like you get to a certain point where you realize you can't solve the problem you're in with the same mindset that created the problem, you know? And it's like,
Yes.
I need to know. And it's humbling, but it's also one of the most powerful experiences to say, hey, look, man, I need help. Like, and you obviously have it figured out, bro. Like, what do I not know yet? It's like, oh yeah, bro, check it out. Like, let me show you some stuff that I didn't know either. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, wow. Okay. So I'm not the first guy to blaze this trail. Like, there are men before me that I can learn from. So as my career evolved, I got really, really obsessed with understanding the brain, psychology, why people do the things they do, how adversity shapes us in both a positive and negative way, and you know how we develop post-traumatic growth, how we develop resilience. Like how do we? Because from a lot of our pain comes a lot of power, right? Especially
Right.
having overcome it. It's like for you, you know, the training, like the stuff that you do now, it's like that's that same grit and that same element of perseverance that was
Sure.
forged in the fire of your struggle is really something now in your life that you can put into so many positive things. How do I be a better father? How do I be a better
Right.
husband? You know, how do I treat people better? Like, and it's so amazing, like that persistence. And I think that's what sometimes people who struggle don't realize is it's like, yeah, you're struggling, but like you're not giving up and you're still developing endurance, long suffering, fortitude. Like you're still developing these great qualities amidst your struggle. And all of that can be utilized in a very powerful way. Like I said, I was a very obsessive guy, like, you know,
Right.
compulsive, you know, just mind wandering 1,000 miles an hour. But that's a lot of like my genius. That's a lot of my creativity. That's a lot of what makes things work for me now in my business when I help people. So um, I really got just really interested in like why people do the things they do, human behavior. And so I started working specifically with families.
Okay.
So like the family members of people that are struggling and specifically like men that are married, you know,
Right.
married men who are struggling with whether it's some type of vice, because it's all the same, man. Addiction is addiction, you know, vices are vices,
For sure.
you know, and it's like, so really helping men because the our children are really our future, man. And so it's like there's so many men that are struggling in silence and maybe succeeding in a lot of areas, but that one area of their relationships really
Hmm.
struggles. and mainly because they can't have a healthy relationship with themselves, or they can, but just haven't chose to. So
Right.
that's become a big passion of mine over the last probably 6 years, is really
Okay.
working mainly. I've always worked mainly with, primarily with men, but really working mainly with really married men who are struggling with self-doubt, procrastination, and really their ability to connect and to downshift from this kind of like even addicted to work. How many guys are addicted to work, and
Right.
society calls you a success, and it's like when you're addicted to
Yeah.
work and your family's miserable, man. So I think the way we look at addiction in this society is really backwards.
I think you're right. I know there's a lot of things that people get addicted to, and they're almost rewarded or awarded for that.
Yeah.
And so it's like now, well, I'm successful, I'm making money, I'm doing this. This is my job. I'm providing for the family, but can't figure it out. I'm at work more than I'm at home. I'm giving all my attention to work. I'm married to my phone. Why won't my kid look at me the same way that he used to? Or why is my wife not interested in spending any time with me anymore? Because I'm not present. I'm not available for her or him as our kids, our wives, our partners. I see it all the time. And I've been very guilty of that myself, even in recovery, like getting too involved in certain things that it could even be training. And I kind of paint it with this, well, it's healthy. It's for my recovery. I have to keep a healthy body, healthy mind, but I'm spinning out of control if I don't train for 3 hours every day. But, what about the day that I got to go to my kids' lacrosse tournament and, be present for that? I can't be spinning out of control. I have to be present. I have to realize that, there are certain things in my life that I need to prioritize, and the people under my roof are number one, myself included. And so if I'm going overboard in any part of my life, I have to realize that means I'm taking away from them.
Yeah, and I think that's like the hardest part as men, because we're so used to providing, like achieving. A
Yeah.
lot of us grew up with performance-based love. It's like, love something I got to work for. It's something I got to, earn, prove I deserve, and just having love, it's like, man, I remember even, with my wife and my family, like my daughter, when she was first born, I went on this meditation retreat and we did 12 hours of meditation. And in like the 10th hour, I was just sitting there in quiet with myself. My mind was completely like I've never experienced this state of just Zen, I guess you call it. And this just realization came to me that I'm capable of loving people on a deeper level,
Right.
but I'm afraid to lose them.
Okay.
And so I realized that, like, man, like there's a part of me that maybe through, a lot of my pain that I learned to kind of, there's that part of me where it's like, I could always go deeper, but there's that fear of like loss, disconnection, because I think that's just what was such a part of my life for so long, that there was maybe that fear, whether it was relationships that ended, family dynamics, if it was, relationships I had earlier in life, or just losing people. I lost, man, all my friends died.
Yeah.
All the guys I grew up with, nearly literally all of them. And especially all the guys that I got loaded with are all dead or in prison, and most of them are deceased. So, I think that's why I'm so big into like helping men understand and develop a level of self-awareness, like remove your ego, man. Like,
Right.
look in yourself and just, it's okay. Like, be honest, like as men, like we have to put on this, there's a time for violence, come after me or my family physically. Yeah. It's like, there's a time for violence, but there's a time for stoicism, and there's a time for empathy, and there's a time for like vulnerability, but you can't just be one dimensional, man.
Right.
There's a time for these things. Like start to realize that you can't be the same guy in your home that you are at work. Like you have to change and shift gears And I think that for a lot of men, it's very hard for them to do that. It's hard for them to shift gears into that, like, okay, I'm not at work. Like, I'm not fixing problems here. I'm just like, I'm available. I'm present. And now, as men, we
Yeah.
want to fix the issue. It's like your wife shares something with you, and you're like, hey, this is how you solve it. Have you tried this? And it's like, she
Oh my God.
wants to know you care. Like,
Yeah. Oh my, I have this conversation with my wife all the time, right? She's an amazing woman, strong, successful, talented, beautiful, the whole package, right? And when she has, of course, we got an 8-year-old at home. There's always going to be chaos in the house, and when she's having her moments, I'm that way. I'm like, okay, this is what we need to do. We need to do A, B, C, and D, and then the problem is solved. This is all we need to do. And she's just looking at me like, I just want a hug. Really? I just need you to hug me. I don't want a solution. I'm not looking for a solution. I want connection. And I'm slowly learning that I'm not here to solve anybody's problems. I'm here to be compassionate and empathetic and present, right? And that's the most important.
that's absolutely the most important, man. And you can only give away what you truly have. And I think there has to be a degree of, I always tell people, you can't defeat what you can't define. You
Okay.
can't conquer what you don't confront. And it's like, how many men that I've worked with over the years who have had some type of adversity that's taken place in their life that they've buried and dismissed as having any validity as to why they, any reason as to why they behave the way they do. It's like, man, your behavior
Right.
says everything about you. It's like, it says everything about how you think and feel about where you're at. It's like, is it safe to say there's some stuff that you've buried and, like, normally and suppressed as most men do with that stuff? It's in 9 times out of 10, there is, there's stuff in a guy's life that he's discredited, and he looks at it and goes, wow, and even just some stuff where it's like, I've never told anybody this. And you dump that. And I tell guys all the time, where there's empathy, shame struggles to exist, you know?
Yes.
So you're shameful about something, and you open up with it, open up about it. If I'm shameful about something and I open up with you about it, you're going to go, okay, I've been there, dude, and it's all good.
For
I've
sure.
gone through that, or I've experienced it, or I know how that feels. And it's like the shame that I felt about how you were going to judge me for that is significantly reduced by the empathy that you offer me. And I think that's what's so important in men's mental health is, like, we have to, it's like, understand that you can't just, like, have this mentality of, like, just push through it and stop being weak and all that. It's like, it's not an excuse, it's a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not using it as an excuse. It's like, I'm not blaming these things I've been through. I'm understanding them as a cause and effect to why I do what I do now. And that's called maturity. I think it's pretty immature to suppress how you feel. It's like, if we're
Right.
called to be emotionally mature, it's like, then that means I need to develop control over what I feel and discipline over what I feel, but also be able to explain it and understand it, and be able to understand, like, what got me to where I was at. Right. It
Right.
wasn't just the drugs. It wasn't just these issues that I had. Those were really the things I was trying to use to solve the issues I had. So what was really
Exactly.
going on with me? And 9 times out of 10, there's some pain there, and there's some stuff we have to uncover. And that's not always easy, but it gives you everything. It's liberating. And I think as men, if we can create a culture of, like, hey, man, don't get it twisted. There's a time for violence.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a time for that. And trust me, like, don't confuse um, transparency and vulnerability with weakness.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, like, and
So
that's,
important for men. Yeah.
yeah, 3-dimensional manhood. It's like, and I think it's so important that we see that, because, you know, it's more than just being a paycheck and providing, and it's so much more. And I think as men in our relationships, most importantly, it's hard because of that relationship sometimes we've had with men we grew up around, or men that, we looked up to, false versions of masculinity that we bought into. Um, so I just believe that in being multidimensional, and that for me has been the healthiest thing for me, in knowing, like, hey, I don't need to just be, this one dimensional dude, and that's how I
Yeah.
lived my whole life. Like, I'm a skater, so I'm a skateboarder. It's like,
Right.
no, I'm a musician, so I'm a musician. It's like my identity was the things I did. It wasn't really who I was. And
Okay.
because I
Yeah.
really wasn't comfortable owning the fact that, hey, dude, I'm sensitive. Like, I'm a sensitive guy. Like, if you put me in a room, like, I'm gonna read the room in 3 seconds. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm a hyper aware person. I have these qualities in me that it's like they didn't serve me very well earlier in my life. So I
Yeah.
just kind of was like, man, I don't need these parts of me. And I kind of cut them out of my life. And I think recovery is like returning back to those parts of you where you kind of like embrace those parts of you, the good, the dark parts and the good parts. Cause there's a lot of good parts of us that I think we bury too. Like a lot of
Definitely.
guys aren't connected with how great they actually are. They're not connected with how amazing they actually are. And they lack confidence because of that. They focus on
Hmm.
everything they do wrong. And it's like, man, are you connected with your greatness? Are you connected with your potential? Like, are you connected with who you really are? It's not just about beat yourself down with everything you do wrong. If we're going to credit ourselves for everything we do wrong, we better credit ourselves for everything we do right too.
Absolutely. Yeah. This episode of the Authentic Adversity podcast is brought to you and sponsored by Another Road Drug and Alcohol Treatment Center. Another Road offers a client-centered recovery program tailored to every individual's circumstances. Their focus is to create a supportive, healing environment rather than a rigid, rule-based institution. Their dedicated commitment upholds the individual values respecting each person's desire for recovery. Another Road understands that every individual requires a unique and focused approach to their recovery. Certain modalities of treatment are introduced along with the tools necessary for each client. Located in a rural setting, their addiction treatment center for all genders provides the perfect setting for a transformative recovery experience and sense of belonging. The private residential treatment facility offers an unparalleled program with counselors that have in-depth knowledge based on varying years of experience in addiction. Another Road utilizes unique, individual-focused plans for recovery that address the complexities of drug addiction, alcoholism, and prescription medication misuse. They have a 65% success rate when clients follow their program. I know many people who have completed this program, and they have absolutely rave reviews. To learn more, visit anotherroad.ca. I like that. I really love that idea of being, multi-dimensional because, a lot of men out there, and I see it. I mean, I work for the fire department here, and there's this typical sort of like toxic male bravado around the fire hall that I see a lot of. And these guys, I know that they're sensitive guys. We're all sensitive guys. But there is such pushback and such reluctance to open up and share about anything like remotely emotional. And just what you said, it's for fear of being viewed as weak. And we don't for some reason, somebody in our past has put that idea in our head, right? That for a man to be vulnerable, to be emotional, to share about how he's feeling equals weakness. And I mean, that's where you get the most freedom. That's where you gain the most strength. And I think a lot of times it just takes one person in that room to open up that way. And then other people can follow suit. And I've seen it at work where, I've opened up about something and I've seen a few other guys follow suit. And, some guys walk out of the room because they're not ready to talk about that sort of thing, right? An emotional topic or, they're not ready to show their vulnerability. But two or three guys there are. And it kind of opens that door for a dialogue there that is a little less surface. And it kind of sets the example in the room that, you know what, we can talk about stuff that's actually going on inside. We don't have to be these big macho tough guys, faking it through our shift just to please each other or what we think might please the guy next to us, right? Like, no, that doesn't bother me. I'm tough. I can call you this name. I can take this and, I can take it and dish it out, all this. And it's bullshit. A lot of it is just absolute bullshit. And it's a bunch of scared men, scared to be themselves.
I completely agree, because I
Mm-hmm.
know from my experience, it was just fear. It was fear of, what are people going to think? And it's like, if you ever watch another man do that, I mean, you have nothing but respect, because it's not like,
100%.
there's healthy vulnerability and then there's unhealthy vulnerability.
Yes.
You see guys get vulnerable and they're in their pity party and it's like they're sulking in self-pity, and it's like, that's unhealthy vulnerability. You're not really looking for a solution, right? You're just
Right.
looking for, hey, let me emotionally dump and jump on my victim wagon over here. And then you have
Yeah.
guys that are honestly struggling, burying it, and it's very hard for them to talk. And they're looking for a solution though when they do it. And there's so much power in that, You're giving, and a lot of times you're giving another man permission, like you said. You're giving another man permission. You're giving him the green light, and he's going like, honestly, I got the same thing going on with me, man.
Yeah.
You're talking to me, man. You're telling my life story. And then you realize it's the guy directly next to you that you've been at the fire hall with for like 3 years, who's literally had the exact same experience that you did. And it's like, dude, and then what does that do for men? It's like, that creates a connection and a brotherhood and a sense of camaraderie that like is only going to forge that relationship so much more. You realize it's like, man, I trust this guy, and I think some of us have opened up with the wrong people before, and then we get wounded, and then we're like, I don't want to open up. I don't want to be, and it's like, dude, you don't have to go open up with the clerk at 7-Eleven. Just find people,
Yeah.
find people you can connect with, man. Like, who are your people? Who's your tribe? Like, and find people that are safe people that you trust. It's like, hey man, and build that relationship, stoke that fire, get that thing going, and then start to experience the power of what it's really like to, I mean, dude, 9 times out of 10, bro, we think people are judging us. They're not. They're thinking about themselves.
They are. Yeah.
They're not driving home going, wow, like what a weak dude Tim is for sharing that. Like, dude, that's not. They're thinking about like, man, how was my share? Like, was that okay?
Yeah.
What I said, was that good?
Totally.
They're not tripping on 9 times out of 10. They're like, bro, that was brave. And like, I appreciate you doing that, man. Like, that meant a lot to me because I could relate to that. And I think giving people permission is a really powerful thing. And it's not easy to do, man, especially when you're making the decisions that are difficult decisions to be made, and you're really defying the norm in terms of what we grow up with. And, I mean, you look at our grandfathers, and you look at our great grandfathers, and you look at what they went through, and it's like, and World War II veterans. My dad's a Vietnam veteran. It's like, that's what we come from. And so at some point in time, we have to see like, this is, a lot of these guys had to do this as a way to survive. And, I think that there's a balance in that, you have, people say toxic masculinity. It's like, well, you have toxic behaviors, and then you have like, there's masculinity, and then there's, toxic behaviors, but it's not one thing, toxic masculinity. It's like, oh, what, to be strong and to be stoic and to be assertive. And no, we just need to return, I think, as men to a place of, again, being multidimensional. And I think that's the really the ticket for men in terms of freedom is, and we think sometimes like, man, this is going to change me. Like, I'm going to get weak. Like, I even remember, man, in the very beginning, I'll never forget, like, I opened up about some stuff, and then I went home and I was like looking in the mirror, and I had my shirt off, and I'm like standing at the mirror, and I'm like, what happened to you, bro? I'm like, you're soft now. And then I was like, man, you know what? Like, how was that though? Was that hard? Dude, that was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And it's like, so do you think that made you soft and weak? Or do you think that that was literally something that is making you stronger? Why? Because all that stuff that I had buried was just holding me down. It was, people say you're only as sick as your secrets. It's like the stuff that, and then you let it go, and you're like, wow, like I had this big story in my head about what it was. And it's like, and then something clicks. You realize this thing happened to me, right? And maybe I had some, shame and guilt about it. And then you share it, and you realize that you had a major misperception about your role in it, or like what it meant in your life. And then you get, it gives you feedback, and you're like, never thought about it like that. I had this jacked up story about what it meant, about who I am. and I never even took into consideration what you just told me. And it's like,
Yeah.
wow, like, whoa.
Sometimes we need that, right? We just need that outside opinion because we're so stuck in this way of thinking, and we run it through this cycle over and over and over again, and we just can't get out of it.
Yeah.
But somebody's got to snap us out of it, right? Somebody's got to tell us the truth, because what we're telling ourselves is often a lie. And maybe not a lie, but like we're blowing things way out of proportion, and they don't need to be most of the time. And yeah, I've had several people in my life be that person for me to say, like, dude, look what you've turned this situation into. Like, settle it down. This is okay. The same thing happened to me, and this is all it is. And they break it down to me in a way that I've never looked at, or I've never been able to look at from that perspective. And all of a sudden it makes sense. And it's like, oh my God, in sharing that struggle with somebody else, they were able to shift my perception and have a part in shifting my life moving forward, because now I'm not carrying that anymore. It's really quite amazing to have an experience like that with another man that you trust, right? Like, to be able to just say, no, man, here's what it is. It's not what you think. And oftentimes, like I said, what we think is a very twisted view on reality.
That's a great point. And I think that guys, they create that story, therefore they suppress it. And then they don't really realize how a lot of the issues that's happen in their relationships, especially their marriages, is really, it's like you're not reacting to this person. A lot of times it's connected to that stuff. It's connected to those stories. It's connected to those experiences that you refuse to analyze and look at. And so it's like you come in, you have like some flowers in your hand, and, you walk in and you're late for dinner. Your wife says, hey, why are you late? And you're like, well, I told you I couldn't be home on time. And, you snap back at her, and then she says, well, I thought we agreed on this. If you're going to keep being late for dinner, and then you just say, fuck it, I can't do anything right, can I? And then you throw your bags, and it's like, well, why did you react? It's like, well, maybe because you felt disrespected, or you felt unappreciated, or you felt unloved. And maybe that is connected to a past experience of some way that you felt in a previous relationship or previous relationships. Right. And so it's like that trigger is really just connected to other experiences. And if you can't be conscious of, if you keep looking in the outside world and thinking the outside world is what is triggering you, you're going to keep reacting to the outside world. It's like, step back, man, look inside yourself and be honest and remove your ego to own and acknowledge like what's going on with you. And if you can do that, it puts you in a position to empathize and understand, like, if this is going on with me, well, what's it like for my wife when I come home late? Well, she probably feels the exact same way. Yeah. And so I'm not going to take it personal that she snaps back at me. It's like, no, I can empathize, seek to understand, and then I can learn how to apologize without making an excuse, right? I can just say, hey, I'm sorry, without saying, hey, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't have said that. It's like, no, hey, I'm sorry. And then I can appreciate, hey, I appreciate that you got upset, that I'm coming home late today, and I know it's important for us to get home on time and me to be here. And I know you're making dinner and you're here with the kids, and I appreciate you. Thank you for calling me out on that. Like,
so healthy.
It's like, what is that like in a relationship? It's like in our mind, like, I'm not going to let them win. It's like, oh, that's your ego. Like, oh, I got to prove myself. I got to defend myself. I got to be right. And it's like, bro, you can do that in your business, but you can't be doing that in your house. Like, your wife is not going to be cool with that. And it's going to cost you every great relationship you have.
100%.
What do you want? You want to have some, the typical quote unquote trophy wife that is just robotic and basically doesn't want anything from you in terms of connection and vulnerability. Well, what is it going to be the quality of that relationship? One of your best assets you have is your relationship with your wife. The best asset you have is your relationships. It's like, you got the asset of your business and, your home, but what about your marriage, your relationships? The ROI on that is
right. Exactly. And that's your partner. Why are you in a competition? You should never be in competition with your partner, right? Why do you have to win? Like, why do we have to win? It's like, no, we're coexisting. We're not in a competition here. And yeah, I totally, I can relate to that. Personally, I can really relate to that because there's been, my wife and I have moments like that too, where both of us, we
Yeah, of
react out in a certain way, but we have the type of relationship where we can come back to that and say, listen,
course.
I was so wrong. Here's what happened. I reacted. I shouldn't have. I didn't take your feelings into consideration. I didn't consider where you were coming from. I just reacted out of like a knee-jerk reaction. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that. And then that opens the door for her to have a conversation with me about how she felt. Then we laugh about it. We go on our day, and our night is so much better because we had that laugh about it. We had a connection. We learned from it, and we know better for next time.
That's so great. I love that. Like really,
Yeah.
like take, that's the power of conflict resolution, of owning your part. And
Yeah.
it's hard when you're not used to, again, back to really being self-aware and having emotional intelligence within yourself,
Yes.
knowing what am I feeling, instead of just saying, I feel like crap. It's like, well, I feel bad. It's like, well, what is it exactly that you're feeling? Why are you feeling the way you do? And what do you do with those feelings? And I think
Right.
you're creating safety and security for your spouse. You're making her feel safe and secure in the relationship. And inevitably, it's like, if you can make humor out of it, it's even better. It's like, and then I
It
can
is.
laugh about it. And we don't even realize as men, like, we carry a lot of stuff over the threshold of our door. It's like, man, you're a firefighter. Like, I'm dealing with people's lives. You're dealing with people's lives. Like, well, yeah,
Yeah.
of course. Like, do I carry stuff across the front door? Yeah. So it's like important before I walk in the door, like, take a couple deep breaths,
Yeah.
Yes, remember, like, sometimes we don't realize there's a lot of pressure from other experiences that, like, just that one thing can be that domino effect from the day of, like, all the stuff I have been carrying throughout the day. And,
For sure.
another piece why it is so important to, constantly be kind of taking a little inventory on ourselves. Okay, how are you doing today? Where are you at right now? What's going on with you? How are you feeling? And really check in, like, hey, do I, no, I need to go, to the jacuzzi for a little bit afterwards at the club and relax for a minute, or
Yep.
I need to go get a workout in, or I need to go on a run, or I just want to need to go walk around the block, like, or I'm going to do some breathing in the room, I'm going to, I'm going to go stretch it out upstairs, like, or I'm going to put on some music and do a little meditation for 10 minutes. It's like,
Yep.
stuff, just those little tweaks throughout your day are
Mm-hmm.
so crucial in terms of making you better equipped to deal with those moments. Because sometimes as men, like, we're just powering through life. Like, it's like
Absolutely.
we're just powering through. We're just powering through, right? And then it's like, man, bro, stop. It's like, stop for a second. You can't just power. You can power through all you want, but, like, you're gonna power through into an early grave. Rest or rest in peace,
Right.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Rest and recover, bro. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you need to recover. Give yourself time. And even if it's 10 minutes, it's like, that's 10 minutes.
Yep.
It's an important 10 minutes. So, and I think for us, like, a lot of us, we've never really given ourselves time like that. What's that look like for me? It's like, you just find stuff that works for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's taken a long time to kind of cultivate that, that what does that look like for me? And actually my wife helps me with it quite a bit. Like, if she feels my energy being a little off, or she calls me on it right away, and she's like, oh, you need to go upstairs and do some burpees.
Yeah.
Because that for me is my thing, right? Like, that's where I get, yeah. Because
me too.
You do 100 burpees, you forget every problem you've had that day. It's gone, right? So she'll call me on that stuff, or she'll say, like, maybe you need to go do, take a drive, go breathe, listen to an audiobook or whatever. And I can do the same for her now. And so we're able to be there for each other that way, where, because I myself might not, I'll catch it, but I'll catch it too late. I'll realize I need to go do my burpees 3 minutes after I should have gone up and did my burpees. So if she can say, hey, like, or sometimes it's like, hey, what do you need right now? What do you need? Do you need time? Do you need space? Do you need comfort? You know, just that question. It's like,
Powerful, man.
it really is. It's done. I mean, I can't say enough about my wife and what a force she is in my life. Like I've never experienced connection like I have with her, and for her to be able to call me out on stuff like that, or if I get upset about something, like sometimes she'll be like, "Oh, you think I'm your mom right now, don't you?" Or like you think I'm your mom, and you know, she'll be able to call me on these things, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, she's right. She's right." Like we know each other in a way that she can call me on my stuff more than I can call her on hers, but I'm learning. But just to have that kind of relationship where it's a symbiotic relationship where you're given, I don't want to say given permission, but like given the freedom to do the things that you need to come back as a better person, a better man, better husband, a better father. So if she knows that I need space, or she can feel it, I need to go do some burpees, go for a run, go to the gym, come back, and let's have family time, because that's when I'm at my best, and that's when she wants to be around.
I love that, because it reminds me of, when I used to show up to facilities, and a guy would be in the backyard like drinking a Monster Energy and hitting his vape like it's going out of style, right?
Yeah.
He'd come inside and he'd like have some sugary cereal, like a bowl in front of him on the coffee table, and he's in his pajamas and he's wearing like some slippers, and I'm going like, "Hey bro, like let's check in, how are you doing?" He's like, "I have anxiety." And it's like,
no kidding.
check it out, bro. Like, you don't have an anxiety problem. You have to understand how what you put in your body causes anxiety problem.
Right.
And a lot of guys, I think they try to work through things psychologically that should be worked through physically, physiologically,
Yes.
biochemically. It's like you said, the burpees is a great example. It's like, man, if throughout the day, like raise your energy, like do some burpees, do some push-ups, like, and watch. Like I've never met a single person in the middle of a run that said they were depressed or anxious underneath their car at the gym saying that they're anxious or depressed. It's like, it doesn't happen. So a lot of times it's like guys they have an inability to understand. I think for us, because of what we've done to our bodies, we understand like how putting stuff in our bodies changes our mood, changes our chemistry, changes our physiology. And we don't really realize like our body is a chemistry set. Like, it's a full chemistry set. Like all drugs, the drugs that you take, they're just playing on the chemicals that already pre-exist. The dopamine, the oxytocin, the serotonin, the endorphins, the cortisol, the adrenaline, it's all there. It's like, so when you go exercise, you're tapping into that. Like, and if you can find modalities to help support that, your body is a machine and a product of chemistry. Like you can tap into that chemistry. You have your own pharmacy readily available to you. It's just going to take action. So like sometimes you just need to like get off your ass and do some action and take an effort towards applying your will and strength towards something that is going to give you that. That's going to give you. And I think for us, we got it for years, just so quick and temporary. Like, just give the guy some money, he gives me this thing, and I get this euphoric rush that's like better than any experience I would ever experience naturally times 1,000. Right. Like, so you develop this mindset of instant gratification. And I think a lot of men fall into the trap of like, man, go do something physical for 5 to 10 minutes. Try doing intense exercise for 15 minutes, a HIIT workout, do some paced breathing, do some paired muscle relaxation, right? And splash some water in your face and tell me that you are still having the same problem.
Yeah. You'll be like, what problem?
Yeah. What? Like, what was my issue? Like, I'm good now. And even if it still is a problem, it will still give you a moment of clarity, a moment to be able to logically think clear, to come back with a more clear headspace. So I think a lot of guys, they don't have that relationship with their physical body. And I know I didn't have that relationship with my physical body for years. I wasn't clear about how the foods I ate, the sleep I got, the supplements I took, my hormones, like all that stuff is so important to have in balance. Guys are talking about, they have all these, a lot of these psychological issues, when the majority of the time it can be worked through physiologically or physically.
Right. Yeah, I love that. Totally agree. So talk to me, Tim, a little bit about Beyond Driven.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to say I love the name. As a Pantera fan, I love the name, and also, I mean, I think it really suits you and your message for sure.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah, I love Pantera too. So
yeah.
Beyond Driven is really about kind of what I was talking about earlier with helping men really understand, like, if you really push yourself and not just physically, but, within, if you really push yourself to go inward and to really explore like what's really going on with you. It's really it's a program that focuses on 5 key areas of a guy's life. So it focuses on his emotional intelligence, understanding what he's feeling, why he's feeling the way he is, and what to do with those feelings. And most importantly, how to develop control over his emotions.
Okay.
Right? A lot of guys just they think the goal is to be emotionless. Like, I just don't want to feel this way. It's like, no, develop control over it, understand it, emotion management. Physical intelligence, what we were just talking about. So understanding your mind-body connection, your triggers, your addictive behaviors, and your relationship with, the way you treat your body, the foods you eat, exercise, sleep, all those things are a part of your physical intelligence. Your self-worth. So really knowing what you're truly worth and using boundaries and self-discipline to secure that within your life, right? How do I secure my worth and value? It's like, well, how do you treat yourself, man? Like, how do you talk to yourself? Like, and is there other experiences that have happened in your life that have made you feel like you don't have worth? And your spiritual identity. So being free from heavy guilt, free from heavy shame, and living authentically in alignment with your life's purpose, in alignment with your authentic self. And then your mindset, the empowered mindset, which is really stepping out of the victim narrative, stepping out of your negative mindset, your fixed mindset, and more into a growth mindset. Really stepping into a position in your mind where the thought process you have, the way you solve problems in your life, the way you critically think, a lot of issues that we have as men is really our mindset, and it's such a big deal because we've been thinking this way for so long that we haven't even been able to zoom out and really realize this is my mindset issue. So in the program, we really focus on really helping men have better relationships with their wife by really eliminating the self-destructive behaviors in their life by focusing on those 5 areas. So we do coaching, we do groups. I have curriculum that I teach. And then we have an app that we use. And the app that we use has coping skills, breathing exercises, workouts, community support, messaging with us. So the whole program is really designed around the inside. It's from the inside out, right? Our whole life, we tried to fix the inside from the outside. But you can't fix the inside from the outside. You can only fix the inside from the inside. And so I think
absolutely.
I think with the reason that I really developed this program is because it was really out of my frustrations in the clinical setting. So working in the clinical setting, I saw that men were being given diagnoses. They were being prescribed medications, but they weren't being taught a really healthy, holistic way to heal. And inevitably, it made me really frustrated. I saw man, this guy, he does not have depression. He has the symptoms of depression, but don't just give this guy medications. I believe that if we give this guy the proper routine and lifestyle and he does the right work and he has the right tools, he won't be depressed, and so my frustrations in the clinical setting, and also just guys in therapy, even my own experience in therapy was all right, I'm going to go to therapy. And I was really excited, I'm going to go to therapy. And then I go to therapy and it was just talking for the hour. And I'm is this what this is supposed to be? Oh, maybe it's just my first session. And then it's talking again. I'm just venting. And I'm okay, this isn't, as men, we want to be held accountable. We want to get results. I want to know the actionable steps that I'm supposed to take. But unfortunately, therapists are bound by a code of ethics. So they're not allowed to actually give you instructions in terms of what you're supposed to do or what something is connected to. Their whole goal is to get you to introspect and to come to those
Right.
realizations on your own. But if you're really stuck, like that may take like 3 years, you know?
Yeah. That's a long time to suffer.
And as men, like we're just like, dude, look, tell me what I need to do. Like,
Yep.
help me solve this now. Like, give me direction. And I think that's really like what we try to focus on is like, let's give you the actionable steps that you need to take today so that you
Yeah.
can really start experiencing results. And I believe that the key to life, really doing life successfully, is having the right tools and the right people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just as simple as that. If you have the right tools and the right people, right, and you really work on those 5 areas that I mentioned earlier, your mindset, your spiritual identity, your worth and value, your physical intelligence and your emotional intelligence, what you'll inevitably be able to achieve will blow your mind. You know, you'll just see like, okay, I've just been looking at these problems all wrong, you
Yeah.
know, and I just didn't have the right ingredients really in the right skill set or the right mindset or the right heart set or soul set to really achieve what I'm looking for. And so, in the program, we really help men dive deep on the inside and really
Yeah.
be honest with themselves. Very similar to what we've already talked about, you know, about that inner work. A lot of the adversity they experience in their life that they've, you know, buried, whether it's, you know, some sexual abuse that happened or physical abuse or emotional abuse or verbal abuse or, you know, other adversity they've gone through and you know, things that have happened in their life and the way those experiences have really shaped them in terms of the way they deal with their emotions now, the way they deal with relationships now, conflict now. And so
Right.
really helping them design a life that's around, you know, excavation, you know, it's an excavation process. You know, if we show up on an archaeology site, you know, you're not just going to take a backhoe into the ground.
Yeah.
You know, like you're going to survey the land, they're going to flag off areas they want to dig, and then they're going to, you know, determine, okay, what's the top priority? And then they're going to go, okay, let's dig here. And
Okay.
as they start to dig, you know, they don't just keep digging, they are very careful and they dig and sift away dust and debris, and they use little tools and little brushes, you know, straws like to blow air away, you know, sift away debris, and they uncover, you know, artifacts, relics from the past, you know, and then they
Yeah.
study those things and they see, you know, hey, what's the relationship between these things and the things of today? How do they relate to today? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and then once they've done that process, they put it on display for other people to learn from. Right. And it's
Yeah.
like, so that's the process that I really help men do, is like that archaeology process. And then the envision process. You know, who do you want to be? What do you want to have? You know, what do you need to do? What are the
Yeah.
actionable steps that you need to take to live in alignment with the man you want to be? And then the last part is really emerging as that man and holding yourself brutally and ruthlessly accountable to being that man. Because
Yes.
inevitably over time, the way you help somebody change is you have to change their brain, right?
Right.
And how you change their brain is through neuroplasticity, synaptic pruning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Neurons that fire together wire together. So it's like if I, you know, guys are stuck because they have neural pathways and synaptic connections that have been formed and forged and are very strong. So it's like you have the habit of being yourself. You have a habit of
Right.
the things you do, the ways you think, the behaviors that you engage in. It's hard to break those all at once. So it's like if I gave you a test, right? And I said, hey, here's some information. I'm going to quiz you on this in an hour. You know,
Right.
you would try to cram the information and cram the information. And, you know, if I gave you the test, you'd get probably a pretty decent grade, maybe 80%, because all that was in your working memory. It was firing, it was wiring, you were using it, right?
Yes.
But I'm sure if I came back 2 weeks later and you didn't review the information at all and I gave you the same test, I mean, we could agree your test score would go down,
For
right?
sure.
And that's because the
Yeah.
brain goes off that principle of use it or lose it,
Okay.
right? And the connections that we use frequently in our brain are strengthened, while connections that we don't use are pruned away. So it's like if you learn an instrument, the connections aren't there, but then you learn that instrument, you learn that guitar solo. And then what if I take away that guitar, I put it in the closet for 5 years and I give it back to you? Well, you're
Yeah.
going to be what's called rusty, right? Your muscle memory
Yes.
is not going to be there because those synapses, because you haven't been using them, they've been pruned away. So it's like
Yeah.
we really want to help guys strengthen and pay attention, be mindful constantly and deliberate and intentional about what you're doing every day and making sure that it's happening every day, and that you're pruning away the connections connected to the old self,
Okay.
really emerging as this new guy with these new habits, and making sure that you're maintaining that, because it's easy to keep that for a little while and then you can fall back because those neural connections really haven't been used, haven't been strengthened enough yet, and that takes
Yeah,
time.
for sure. For sure. So Tim, is this program then available to everybody? Like if I'm in Canada and I want to take part in the program, is it a virtual thing that I can take part in as well, or do I have to be in person?
Yep, absolutely. So it's a totally online virtual program. Anybody can join. Obviously, they have to be qualified and they have to have a problem they're really looking to solve.
Okay.
We're really looking for people that are struggling, that have actual problems that they want to solve. There's always two
Right.
kinds of guys. There's guys that want the self-improvement, like, I just want to be better. And then there's guys like, hey man, I'm really struggling and I want to improve. So we work
Okay.
with both those types of guys, guys that have problems they want to solve and they want to be better, they want to improve. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's the goal of our program. We have a great team, great team. All of our team are all guys who have been through major adversity in their life. Whether
Right.
it was time in prison, or just adversity similar to mine, addiction.
Hmm.
It's all guys who have experienced some level of adversity and personal pain, and they've
Yeah.
turned that into power and strength. And we use that as a platform to um, just help men really work on becoming a better version of who they are, and just
Yeah.
achieving their highest potential and the greatest expression of who their authentic self is.
I love that. And I think there's so much to be said for lived experience, right? I mean, if I'm looking at bettering myself in my life, I want to talk to somebody who's been through the shit. I don't want a book learned person. I mean, that stuff is great, but I want to be able to relate to that person. I want the person who is helping me to be able to pull from their personal experiences and say, I was there, man. This happened to me. This is how I overcame.
Yeah,
These are the emotions that were attached to it, and let's work through this together. There's nothing. I think lived experience is worth so much in this field, and I love that. I love that you have a team of people who are, just that, who have that lived experience and that experience through adversity, and that they've achieved and overcome things in life that many people don't, and now they're on the other side of that, having had that experience, and able to kind of spread that wealth of knowledge to people that are suffering in some sort.
absolutely,
Yeah, man.
absolutely.
To kind of wrap it up, I wanted to ask you, where can people find out more information about the program? If people want to reach out and, maybe follow some of your stuff on social media, what kind of plugs do you want to give there?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram at beyond__driven. You can follow me on TikTok at Beyond Driven. You can also find me on our website, beyond-driven.com. And yeah, we're also on Facebook as Beyond Driven. So
Okay, perfect.
if you search us, we'll come up. You'll find us on one of those platforms.
And I'll put those links there in the show notes as well for people to make it easy to access. Yeah, man. Well, I wanna personally thank you so much. I mean, you are a wealth of knowledge and experience, and I've learned so much just sitting down for an hour with you like this. I always, as I said at the beginning, I look forward to seeing your posts every day, and getting that little piece of motivation and inspiration that you so cleverly put out to the world. I love it. It really. I mean, there's times in my day where, I need something like that. And I know that yours is an account that I can just click on, go to a reel and listen to you speak. And it's like, okay, He's speaking my language, and I feel better now. I'm a better person. I can move through my day with much more ease. So,
Yeah.
I appreciate you for all you do and everything you stand for, man. You're truly a miracle, and I think it's amazing. And I just want to say thank you so much. It's been an honor and a privilege.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate you, man. And yeah, brother, that's just what we're trying to do. It's like giving more, being more so we can give more, and really just trying to offer value to people, even if it's just amazing that like through a piece of content that somebody can extract value like that. And it's just a beautiful thing, man. And I'm, again, like just blessed and fortunate and just humbled by the fact that God has even allowed me, to be in this position that I'm in, and I give all the credit to him, man.
Yeah. Amazing, man. Well, thank you again. And you have yourself an amazing weekend. And I appreciate you, man.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. You too, brother.